What wonderful life we have. Staying at home, having a cup of coffee. Imagine if our skies were filled with missiles. What would you do at such situations? This is the life of people living in Palestine. And let's talk about it. So, before that, grab a cup of coffee. Hello people. The tensions between Israel and Palestine has shown considerable amount of aggression around the world. We have seen destruction of land and loss of innocent lives. Let's talk about it. So Israel got its independence from British mandate in 1948 and on 11th May 1949 they were admitted as the member of United Nations. Interestingly, my grandmother is older than them. So let's move prior to 1948 in the 1300s and 1400s where the Jewish people were ill-treated in Europe. They started to migrate to this land of Israel and Palestine, which was a combined land, and by 1900s the Jewish people dominated this land, and in order to stop the conflicts between the Arab people and the Jewish people, United Nations came up with the plan of partition in which they have appointed certain territories for the Arab dominated people and for the Jewish dominated people. The Jewish people accepted this and called their country as the State of Israel, whereas the Arabs did not accept it, and which led to a war of Arab-Israeli War of 1948. And since then, wars and conflicts are quite common between both of these countries. And in 1967, in the Six-Day War, in which Israel faced Syria, Egypt and Jordan, which eventually led the Israel to capture Gaza Strip and the West Bank, and the people, the Palestinians living over there, eventually became refugees. And the most recent, let's talk about the most recent one. Okay, this started when 40 Palestinian families were told to move out from their houses in Sheikh Jarrah, which started a protest near Masjid al-Aqsa. And in order to stop this protest, the Israeli army sent its troops to Masjid al-Aqsa, and we all know what has happened all those 4-5 days. And to answer this, the storming at Masjid al-Aqsa, Hamas, which is a resistant organization based in Gaza, fired rocket missiles to the city of Tel Aviv, which is like a major city in Israel. And to retaliate that, there was an airstrike from Israel on Gaza, and we know how many children and people lost their lives. So if you put this in a complete scenario, okay, here we understand one thing is that whatever we see today is just the outcome of the plannings which were happening since 40-50 years. Because you see, in the last 40-50 years, Palestinians has lost every right. You name the right, they lose it. So if we put it as a plan, I hope everyone has watched Doraemon once in their lifetime at least. So Israel over here is like Jian, who likes to irritate and troubles
Nobita.
the Palestinians. And we, the people, are like Shizuka to them. Why? Because we give them courage and hope to fight against Jian. But who is Doraemon in this whole scenario? Doraemon are the powerful people and powerful organizations. Here I'm talking about the United Nations. So now you can argue that United Nations has already done a lot for Palestinians, and you guys are right. They have done remarkable stuff for the Palestinians. In fact, right now there is on Google you can check, there's a website of United Nations welfare for the Palestinian women and children. Okay, and you can go there and donate. Also, they have done a lot for the medical health care and established schools, hospitals, infrastructures, everything. But for example, I'm a very skinny guy. And if you see a very bodybuilder kind of guy comes and beats me up, you as a friend of mine, what would you do? Will you stop that fight, or will you wait for the fight to get over and then garnish my wounds? Because that's what United Nations has been doing since decades, right? They have been garnishing the wounds of the wars. And if you say that these are the internal matters of the countries, and that conflicts and wars are bound to happen, let me clear you guys one thing. Even India and Pakistan were partitioned in 1948, and we don't see airstrikes week in and week out. Okay, and we have seen many Palestinians being happy when they see Arabs suffer and eventually die. But this kind of mentality is not found in India or Pakistan. And if you don't believe this, just go on YouTube and type Pakistani's reaction to Salman Khan's Radhe, and in the comment section you will see love from Pakistan, love from India, India Pakistan, bhai bhai. But this kind of mentality is not found here between these two countries. The root cause for this kind of mentality is that the Israelis were not taught about human rights. The education system. Since 2000, many Arab committees and organizations have already filed complaints regarding the education of Israel. Okay, and because the language over there spoken is Hebrew, I don't understand Hebrew, but according to these guys, the state school textbooks of Israel has some pretty harsh words, and it always inferiorized the Israelis and superiorized the Arabs and showed them as oppressors. So eventually, so when you're nurturing this kind of ideology in the minds of young, enmity between them is of course going to happen. Now if you say that this is just a fight between Muslims and Jews, then let me tell you guys, there are 52 Muslim countries and only 4 countries are enough to destroy Israel. But it would be the same what Israel is doing to Palestine right now. There would be only loss of innocent lives, but the ideology within them remains the same. The reason why this ideology is only found in countries like Israel but not in other countries like India and Pakistan, because the government over here has kept people before power and money, although corruption prevails everywhere. But the government of Israel has kept power and money before people. Although there are certain schemes and there are certain laws which are actually quite powerful for the Israeli citizens, yet they fail as a humanity. And trust me guys, the people who are getting benefited from these conflicts and wars do not even live in these countries. They live in the first world countries and they are enjoying the privileges. Today we see this hashtag trending on all social media platforms because 30 years back we failed in this. And now we are in the 21st century where people don't want any war. And we hope that Israel and Palestine understand their human rights and try to live in peace and harmony. Once a wise man said that if you find any kind of bad thing happening around you, and if you have the power to stop it with your hand, then do so. And if you have power to stop it with your mouth, then do so. And if you don't have both of these powers, then just in your mind and your heart feel that it's bad and abstain from it. Thank you.